Hi there, and welcome to Rapscallion's shop and Rapscallion's Home Decor in Hereford, Maryland. And Joe Rand, my partner, I'm Deborah Dean, and we are going to show you what an appraisal is normally like in our store. We do have, during the month, usually things called neighbor nights, and we have appraisal nights as well. And it's a lot of fun for people to bring in things that they've found around and that they would like to have appraised. So Joe is going to play the part here of the person who has brought something in, and you all are welcome, especially in times of home confinement, to send us photographs, and we will do this exact same thing for you. So today we're going to talk about antique lawn sprinklers. And Joe has an interest in lawn sprinklers and all things garden and lawn. And why is that, Joe?
Because I used to have a garden center in Jacksonville, Maryland.
Right. And she knows more about gardening and about lawns and everything than anybody that I know. So first, let's go through why lawn sprinklers. I mean, the reason that we like lawn sprinklers here is because a lot of antique lawn sprinklers are found in this area. This is a really big area for finding these things, this in England. So a lot of very, very good lawn sprinklers were made in England, and a lot of very good ones were made here. And they were made here in Pennsylvania. So Bradley and Hubbard, which is a famous manufacturer and sort of the Cadillac of iron manufacturing, was based in Pennsylvania, right across the border. And so we do see a lot of their antique dog door stops and horse door stops and things like that. And there's also another company from Mount Joy, Pennsylvania called Gray Iron. And Gray Iron made a number of lawn sprinklers back at the turn of the century that are now extremely valuable. So for those of you that are going out to antique, we always keep our eye out for these. But we'll go through a couple of things that we know about them and what we don't know about them. And Joe will correct me when I'm wrong. She actually knows more about this stuff than I do. But I'm practicing today on you guys. All right, so one thing that we look for in the lawn sprinklers are to have all of its parts. Some of these, well, these particular lawn sprinklers happen to be excellent. You can find some where the head here has been replaced.
And
now,
this one's missing.
And we have one that is missing here. And we'll tell you the difference in the value between those. But how do you know if the head of the sprinkler is attached to the sprinkler and that it's one with the sprinkler? And a lot of that is that when you see it and it's not right, you can really see it. It's either out of proportion, too big, too small, it's been changed, or it has a completely different fitting that doesn't fit directly and tightly onto the sprinkler, and they've used some sort of a coupler to put the head of the sprinkler into the bottom. And funny enough, back in the 1960s, when door stops became very, very collectible, and everybody was, you know, collecting dog door stops and horses and whatever, people used to lop the tops of these off and turn them into door stops. They are 10 to 20 to sometimes 100 times more valuable as a lawn sprinkler. So we don't want to do that. They're mostly found in people's garages, underneath workbenches where they haven't been seen for 40 or 50 years. I definitely would suggest that people go to their shed and look around. You never know what you might find. There are lawn sprinklers that date later than these, like the plastic tractors that would move along your lawn and sprinkle at the same time. Things like that that are as valuable to a different kind of collector. But for mid-century collectors, they're extremely valuable. And they're used for decoration all the time. At the value of these, you probably would not still use them as lawn sprinklers because you're trying to protect the paint. However, if you found yourself in that place in life where you just have an awful lot of money and you want this to work as a lawn sprinkler for you, you have but to hook up the hose and not worry about it. All right, so Now, why lawn sprinklers outside of this area? So a little bit of history about what a lawn sprinkler is, how to get started. Why do people have lawn sprinklers that look like this? So you go back to lawns. Lawns did not exist before 1700. Nobody had a lawn. And then in Europe, people that wanted to show status would have a lawn. And why? Why? Well, it's because everybody needed their land. They needed to put a cow on it, or a sheep, or chickens, or plant it for food to survive. If you got to the point in your life where you had extra land and you didn't need it for that and your own family's survival, that was a point of status. So now just having an unused piece of earth in front of your house became a status. Then the guy over here who could hire a worker with a scythe that would come around and actually cut it and keep it low, he now is more status than this guy. Then this guy who had an even bigger piece of land, and maybe he had two guys with scythes, his status is now even bigger than this guy. And then this guy comes along and puts a statue in it, and puts a path up to the statue. Now his status is even better than this guy. And this guy over here, now he's planting bushes and mazes and, you know, playful things and follies, and maybe putting up a pagoda or pergola or something. This guy is like really status filled. And this man over here just donated empty land with all that stuff on it and gave it to a school or a city or, you know, whatever, a museum. This man now has the greatest status, and we're all back, and everything works the same all around the world, always has. So that started in 1700, but you needed sheep or something in order to actually keep the lawn down so it wasn't wild. Around 1800, they started cutting it. And the very, very first combustible engine to cut mowers probably was 1820. By 1860, it had gotten to the United States. Lawns just weren't a thing in the United States before then. So 1860, people started moving out to the suburbs, and you start seeing people, especially in this area, moving out, and they had lawns, and they wanted to show status, so they started to manicure their lawns, and the industrial age was on, so we had people making things out of iron, and we had huge iron plants going up in Lancaster and pulling things down into the city of Baltimore. That's why our beautiful iron buildings and our beautiful iron monuments all made locally. As a matter of fact, if you go down to New Orleans, there are several famous churches where all their pews are iron, and all that iron was made here in Baltimore. And so we were a huge iron producing city back then. And so why not produce the new status symbol for people moving into the suburbs? And thus, decorative lawn sprinklers. So that's the why to lawn sprinklers. And we can see that several of them are very different. Now, this is the most unusual, and we're going to save that to last. That does not come from the United States. These three do come from the United States, and these three are local. So what we have is a turtle, and he has his original sputter valve. So it turns and goes as it goes around. We have the alligator. Do you have any questions, ma'am?
Not yet.
Not yet? Okay. We have the alligator that does not have its original fitting, but doesn't have any damage. So there's a chance to restore this guy. And then we have our wood duck, and he's terrific. Absolutely sensational, okay? And he's here with his beautiful original paint. So what we have here, and this is also very interesting, you'll notice that the sprayer up here is spraying out of the duck. That saved this duck from losing its paint. These guys sputter, and they sputter around here as well. And therefore the paint on these two left a lot sooner than it would be on the duck. So this is why this one retains its paint. Now, On the turtle, you can still see some of the red and yellow original paint on him. And that does make him very, very collectible. Okay, and I believe this is Bradley and Hubbard. It's got all its fittings. Everything is there. It's in great shape. Would you like to know how much it's worth?
I would, very much.
It's, to a collector, it's worth $450 to $500.
Oh, that's nice.
And that's an auction price. So if you actually had a dealer price. So if you actually had somebody that that collected these, and they didn't have one of these, and this is not going to be as rare as this guy or this guy. This one was not wide, but very, very few of them have the original sputter valve still. So $500 easily on this one, $450 to $500 at an auction.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Okay, now our alligator with his missing top. Now he still has his valve here for the hose, and that all looks original. It has some writing on the outside, but I have no idea what that is. I think it's someone's address as to where it belonged. Because it doesn't mean anything to me. I know this is Bradley and Hubbard. It has some paint left on it, but not enough that you would actually say it. He's terrific. Now, if you could restore him with the original flutter valve, he would be in the $395 to $450 area. Without this, it's a tougher sale because you're going to negotiate a sale. So the sale is going to be to somebody who either has a flutter valve or somebody who has a collection. They don't have this yet, and they're going to have to put the flutter valve in there. And it's sort of dumb because, I mean, the flutter valve, no one's using it anymore. So, you know, just to have that missing is really a shame. But that takes the value to $150, $200,
okay,
somewhere in there. Sorry about that. The wood duck is awesome. Now, I cannot tell if this little orange here, this one looks better. This one right here looks like a tiny little bit of overpaint. But when we're talking about original condition and original paint, we actually don't look at one small spot that someone might have repaired. We actually call that an honest repair or an honest repaint. Maybe it chipped and someone, you know, put it in. Or maybe it is original and it was just protected more than the rest of it. Very, very hard to tell. Therefore, I 100% give this original paint. So now we're going to talk about the wood duck. It might have a little bit of editing there because we actually got to, you know, update your software in the middle of the program. So the wood duck has original paint. It has one little small spot on here that might be a repaint. It's small enough that we don't consider it. So it is actually considered to be original paint, and it's all the correct colors. Now these were done in different colors, so if you find one and it has different colors, you know what something looks like when it's been repainted. I'm always shocked when people tell me they don't know something's been repainted. Of course you do. Just look at your nails. It's like doing your nails. You know if it's your first and second coat, and you know if it's more than that. So when you're looking at the duck, you want to make certain that you don't see any gloppy paint or something that goes over the lines. These would have been expertly painted, okay, in about 1920. All right, it's got its original spray. This would have gone out about 7 feet, and it probably would have stayed in one place, and there would have been a series of these. Perhaps, let's say, if you had a pond or you had a water feature, and you would have placed them around with different valves going to them. Oh, and by the way, interestingly enough, for people that lived in our area out here, we didn't have original water pressure to do these hoses. So they were all done by gravity. So all the water was collected in water tanks, and the water tanks would feed into these birds when it was turned on. So not exactly like turning on our hoses today. And the pressure would have been a little less than it certainly is now. But it would have come from collected water in barrels or higher up in a water tank somewhere near the house. And you hardly ever see those anymore. Every once in a while you'll see a house with these old water tanks still up there, but not very rarely. Now this is, of course, this is the collectible There are two sprinklers that that have sold for more money. There was a monkey dressed as a butler, and he stands on 2 feet, and he sold for $11,000 at one point. And then there is a mermaid holding on to an anchor, and I think she sold at one point for $8,000. Coming up real close to this is the English Noidia duck. And this is probably one of the nicest examples I've ever seen. You were extremely lucky to get this.
Thank you. I feel lucky to have it.
And it's got everything in there. Everything is right. Would you like to tell us where you got it? I mean, how did you come by it?
I was at an auction and I saw it and I fell in love with it and I had to have it.
Well, you were very good. And were there a lot of bidders?
There were a few very serious bidders, yes. I had to be determined to get it.
Well, the prices for these have gone the highest at auction and then with some American iron dealers. And this is the kind of piece that you see at the very, very, very fancy New York shows, where the entire booth, it's like a $10,000 booth, is all black paper and one black stand in the middle, and there's the Noidia duck. Because they're going to get so much money for it that, you know, then when they sell the duck, which they would sell probably in the first hour, they will then put the next piece and the next piece. Oh. And they'll do very well just by saying this is the most important thing we have. And this would be one of those pieces. I would appraise this duck at anywhere between $2,500 and $3,000.
Wow. Thank you.
Good work. I'm assuming you paid less.
I did pay less.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know her. That's why I'm assuming she paid less. All the paint is original.
If my husband's watching, I paid way, way less.
Yeah, way less. But all the paint is original to it. It does have wear. It has proper wear, and it has proper wear. And what we say by proper wear is that wear comes with use. So the wear to something is appropriate with how it's being used. So in this particular case, it's rubbed here, okay? It's around the feet where it would sit in mud and sit in dirt. There's going to be less paint. Up here where it has knocked into something, let's say like they had it wedged up against a rock, or they had it sitting on something, or, you know, even just stored, that's the first thing that comes out of that bird. That's where it's going to hit. So that makes perfect sense, and that's what we look for. We look for that in chairs and tables and china and everything else. You look for where the appropriate wear should be on a piece, and it usually lets you know if it's right. As I said before, made in England, 1920. We know what it's worth. We know why it's beautiful. One of the things that is very special about it is the fact that it's tall. And I'm guessing this is 12 to 13 inches.
Uh-huh.
Let's see what we got here. And that's
12.
All right, so it's 13 with the sprinkler, and it is 11 and a half up to the top of the duck. And that's about right. This is, by the way, an example of one where I saw it years ago with this cut off, and they had turned it into a doorstop. Unfortunate. Anyway, that is not somebody breaking in the back trying to steal our lawn sprinklers. That's my husband taking the opportunity to clean up our store while we are under quarantine. Okay, so I think that we've gone over the ducks. Do you have any questions for me?
Oh, do I just regularly dust them off?
Oh, yeah. And by the way, I mean, once I said before, probably we're not going to use these unless you're in that place in life where you can't afford to use something like this. These are investments. They're only going to go up in value. They're not going to ever go down. They're becoming rarer and rarer all the time. Garden collectibles are extremely collectible because there's so few of them. People didn't take care of them. They weathered. They got thrown away. They weren't appreciated. And so and they weren't inside. So they went through snows and everything else, and people just went, I'm sick of that, and they would just pick it up and toss it. or they'd give it away, or they didn't think anything of it, which is why I still say there might be some in sheds and garages somewhere. So because there's so few of them, people that have these collections really do take care of them, and they really do put them to great use as decorative items. So as an interior decorator, or an interior desecrator, as my best friend says of me all the time, these would be on a wall, or they would be on a shelf. If I had a mud room, or a garden room, or a room with any kind of trellis design, anything like that, they would be front and center.
Okay.
And, you know, I would, of course, display him in the center. Maybe, you know, boxes coming out of the wall or something with these guys on them. And then I would just be constantly on the lookout for another, you know, and there can be, you know, they don't all have to be fabulous. Every one of these ends up being fabulous. But there are some that are just, you know, iron hearts and just an iron shape or an iron ball that's still made by the same people, still very, very collectible. But I think they add more depth to the collection.
Okay.
So that you can see that not all of them are this great. I mean, you could have a couple that aren't so wonderful, just to sort of give it a little bit of explanation as to what it's like to collect something like this. But these are awesome. And you have these for sale.
Yes.
Okay, so we would find these on Cherish, and we would find these on Etsy, in your Etsy store? No, not on Etsy.
No.
Because they're too nice for Etsy. Not nice.
Well, because I'm not that anxious to sell them.
Oh, Lord have mercy, what have we done? Okay, so they're on Cherish, and they're also at Rapscallions. So Joe's collection of antique garden pieces are here. So when we're able to open up, and we'll have them online, but when we are open, please do come in and take a look at some of the beautiful things that she has. And she has a very, very special garden ornament as well, and maybe we'll do another show on those. So thank you all very much for coming in, and if anybody has any lawn sprinklers, we have a buyer, and we would love it if you'd send them in, and we're very, very happy to appraise them for you. So thank you.